This video is sponsored by Amino. Justice League is bad, but it's not just bad. It is without a doubt the worst superhero film ever made. And listen, I'm not just throwing that word around in a blasé sort of way in order to keep you gripped. I'm not being general about this, I mean it. I have seen every trash superhero film, every cheesy, badly made cash grab film with heroes in tights, and I am now entirely resolute in my judgment that Justice League fails in such a historic capacity that it is utterly unmatched. That's right, man, this shit is worse than Catwoman, Batman and Robin, Suicide Squad, Elektra, Steel, Green Lantern, or any other cesspool vigilante movie you may be thinking of. Justice League is the worst. But how am I judging these films? In what capacity am I filtering these cinematic art pieces in order to label them as I currently am? You know my name, NitPix, but you don't know my story. And by story, I mean how I rate movies, which is like this. On the one end, you have films that are so bad they're good. The other, cinematic masterpieces. The green represents the enjoyment of the viewer. We all have the capacity to enjoy either one of these films. Both have passion for their ideas, they try new things, and they take risks. But it's just on one side the risks paid off, and on the other, they didn't. So you got the Dark Knight one side, and you got Batman and Robin on the other. It's at the center that we see what truly makes films bad. They're boring, bland, unexciting, and ultimately have nothing to say. And Justice League is right slap bang in the middle. So now you know how I see and judge movies generally. Let's move forward and go through Justice League with an incredibly fine comb to understand every element that fails about it. But first, an advert. Amino, more like Amin, yes. Ha! What is it? It's an app with a whole network of communities for everything ever. Countless fucking communities. Like if it exists, there's an Amino for it. And if it doesn't, you can make an Amino for it. There's even one for Chicken Run, the movie. I know this because I made it. Do you like Marvel or poetry? Or maybe you just like cheese? Well, guess what, my guy? Now you can meet other people who like cheese as well. And you don't have to be so lonely anymore. But listen, Amino doesn't limit itself. It has sweet, tasty curated feeds where you can see memes or look at Charlie's latest pottery attempt. Just keep at it, Charlie, you'll get there. There's also polls and quizzes, and if you got the balls, you can try and beat me at my own Chicken Run quiz. Seriously, guys, it's really hard. You also got real-time live videos and text or voice chat. Look how many users are active in the Marvel Amino. Time to jump in.
Oh wait, you're gonna put this in the video?
Yeah. Who knows, you might even be able to meet your future wife or husband for Amino. And if you do, just remember you got NitPix to thank. So use the links below and download the sickest app of the century. Superheroes are our modern-day Greek myths, and films are our modern-day Greek books. In 1,000 years, the human race will turn to movies featuring Batman and Iron Man in the same way we look at the Greek stories of Medea or Icarus. We've grown accustomed to seeing a constant slew of superhero films every year, and it's very easy to frame these stories as dumb, artless, and silly. But the reality of the situation is that people are tuning into them in a way that is unheard of, and they're going to have a deep cultural relevance for many centuries to come. Marvel's cinematic universe has changed the landscape of how we see narrative in film forever. Disney have produced 19 films over the last 10 years with interlacing stories, reoccurring villains, and established a universe that is literally a universe, with heroes that can come from any planet or time zone, which all have the precedence to tell a story within that space. It's also been the most commercially successful cinematic endeavor ever. The superhero as a concept has been around for over 100 years, and it's clear why we connect with them. They are the encompassing of essential story tropes, good overcoming evil, heroism, and the aspiration for something larger in life. The format also allows for reflections of our own culture, mirroring what's happening in our own lives even slightly amongst these epic and grand tales. You see it in films like X-Men, which emulate how race and immigration can create social unease and conflict. Captain America: Winter Soldier reflects the ever-increasing surveillance by the government and questions our right to privacy. All the Spider-Man movies embody what it's like to be a teenager, being lost and isolated in their world, searching for purpose, and has always aimed to speak to the culture of the youth at that time. But you could argue that this is just what good movies need to do in order to be important, and you're right. But these movies are doing better than any other movie has ever done ever, and they have a strong impact on the language of cinema and the way we enjoy art in general. Although these films can be seen as just childish, dumb, forgettable romps without much depth, it's worth noting that films like Star Wars, Jaws, and Alien were never meant to be a cultural phenomenon, but because they had such a huge mass appeal and resonated with audiences, they just became that over time. So with Justice League, I'm not just talking about a bad movie here, I'm talking about an insult to our culture. The gaping issues that make Justice League the worst superhero film of all time are clear from the very beginning. An opening scene primarily functions to establish the tone, build up the world in which the narrative takes part in, and possibly introduce the key themes. Justice League chooses to open with a child filming Superman from his phone. Nearly all the criticisms I have for Justice League are observable in this 1-minute scene. Superman has an uncanny valley-esque face, due to this being a reshoot. If you didn't already know, Henry Cavill was contractually obligated to keep his mustache for the filming of Mission Impossible. This meant that in all reshoots with Henry Cavill, he's had his mustache CG'd to look clean shaven. This makes it very difficult to distinguish what emotion Henry Cavill is trying to display. As though he sounds friendly and approachable, he looks irritated.
Meant to wind like a river. It comes and goes.
As the kids ask him questions, the boy filming somehow seems to magically grow to be the same height as Superman, with the camera angles starting low and slowly getting higher as the scene progresses. There's absolutely nothing that visually communicates anything about Superman's character, or his relationship with the people of Earth. When you look at the opening to Spider-Man Homecoming, another superhero film which starts with a first-person camera sequence, you see much more thought put into visual storytelling and the communication of core character traits. The child filming Superman sounds excited, but that isn't communicated with the motion of the camera work, which is smooth and professional, purely serving a function. Imagine yourself as a young child, witnessing a crisis. But then suddenly, you see the Man of Steel swoop in and save everyone. But then he stops, and he gives you his time to make you feel special. How does that make you feel? Hope-filled and warm, you like Superman as a character and you instantly have this huge sense of scope. Now, if you think about all the visually exciting ways that that scene could be put to film, and then see how Justice League decided to do it, it becomes absolutely obvious that no one cared about making a good film. Everything is stiff. There's no sense of this being filmed in a living, breathing world. Superman talks about hope, trails off and stares into the distance. This doesn't set a tone for a fun action blockbuster, which is what I think this film is going for, as there's no music, and due to the fact that Superman died in the last film, the scene has a feeling of mourning. It's like this scene only exists to remind us that Superman is dead now. But come on, this is just a 1-minute scene, supposedly filmed on a camera phone. Give Snyder or Whedon or whoever the fuck directed this scene some slack. Well, in the next scene they introduce one of the biggest and well-known superheroes in history, Batman, a character that's synonymous with quality storytelling. However, quality storytelling is not something you'll find here. The scene opens with a criminal exiting a doorway on a Gotham rooftop, literally carrying a bag of swag. He turns to see Batman squatting on a building rooftop. At this point, when I watched this film in the cinema, everyone started laughing. This is our first shot of The Dark Knight and a room full of people all giggled. They either tried to make Batman look menacing and hopelessly failed, or they for some reason intended this to be a joke. The fact that it could be either speaks volumes about the confused tone of Justice League. Say what you want about Schumacher's Batman, but at least they gave him a more dramatic introduction than this. There's no excitement or anticipation built up towards the revelation of Batman. 10 seconds pass, there he is, and then immediately they're fighting. From here we get a scene showcasing Batman's agility and martial arts. It flutters between slapstick comedy and action spectacle, but in reality, a low-level thug like this geezer should have been pinned down before we could even comprehend Batman was there. It all culminates to Batman dangling the bad man off the roof to scare him. This makes a CGI bug creature fly up, where Batman jumps off the building and grapples it. Wait, hang on. Hold up. So if Batman's objective is to get this guy really scared, What's with all the prancing about? Batman as a superhero is supposed to ignite fear into the hearts of Gotham's criminals. That's what they were going for in the last film. Even the movement of Batman dangling a scared henchman off a high building has been done in many comics and movies before effectively.
Foe wouldn't kill me.
I'm counting on it.
It's amazing how quickly Justice League establishes a film with absolutely no breathing space to take in what's happening. I'm 3 minutes into this shit and there's already a generic CGI bug alien. Everything's happening so fast that your brain is still processing what happened 10 seconds ago. Batman and the bug fly in the air a bit, do a loop, and then they land back on the same rooftop. Batman fires a net at the creature and it explodes, revealing 3 cubes. For some reason that's never really explained. These cubes are enough for Batman and Alfred to agree that they need to get the team together. And Batman sets off, yep, just sort of like that. There's no real attempt to make the moment feel big or dramatic. It's just pictures on the screen and Batman's off. Whoop-de-doo. But they can't end the scene without the blockhead thug directly stating the plot of the film to Batman, because intention to build up mystery and suspense doesn't exist. This film wants the audience to be spoon-fed the plot, and if that means making a hardened Gotham criminal act like a Superman fanboy, then in their minds it's worth sacrificing any suspension of disbelief.
It's 'cause they know he's dead, right?
Superman.
He's gone.
So that's the first 5 minutes of this movie, and if you aren't yet convinced that Justice League is the worst superhero movie ever, then let me lay this out for you. The opening scene in Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, which was disliked by critics and audiences alike, is the end action sequence from Man of Steel, but this time from the perspective of Bruce Wayne. This builds on the world of the DC cinematic universe, linking the two films, but is also an incredibly fun action scene on its own, with huge set pieces and real sense of urgency and panic. We see Bruce Wayne's heroism as he runs into the ash of buildings to save civilians. The scene is tonally consistent with the rest of the movie, but most importantly, it establishes the conflict between Batman and Superman, which is what the whole film is about. In sharp contrast, the first action scene with Batman in Justice League has no sense of scope at all. It's Batman fighting one guy and then another bug creature. There was an opportunity to have Batman pursue the criminal through the gritty streets of Gotham, or make Batman and the alien scouts fly to a different location. It's just so rigid. It's clearly a set, and the whole thing is claustrophobic and cheap feeling. Next on the list is Wonder Woman, I guess. There's a colourful, heroic display of Wonder Woman rescuing hostages. She defeats the anarchist terrorist, who has a really confusing plan that involves detonating buildings. I don't know why they would give this nobody, who has nothing to do with the rest of the film, such an overly explanatory objective. The massive gripe with this scene is that later on in the film, Bruce Wayne will criticise Diana for staying in the shadows and hiding from a superheroine persona.
Superman was a beacon to the world. Where are you?
This establishing scene of Wonder Woman could have communicated hesitation or shyness on her side, a lack of wanting to save these people. Then it could be later reincorporated to, you know, make what Bruce Wayne's saying actually make sense.
Shut yourself down for a century, so let's not talk about me moving on.
This would mean that at the end of the film, when we see her stop an art robbery, it would seem like she'd made a change, as opposed to her just going back to what she was doing anyway. Because as it is, Diana seems more than happy to change into her costume and save the day at the very start of this film. So it's all light-hearted and fun until the terrorist decides to open fire at a group of innocent children. Luckily, they're all saved by Wonder Woman's fast bracelet action. I assume she's not aware of how terrible this movie is, because if she knew, she'd probably let the kids die, the terrorists detonate the buildings, and let her body be pumped with bullets. Speaking of wanting to die, Batman's grown a beard in the time it's taken to get to Aquaman, even though he has a Batwing. Batman asks Aquaman if he can talk to fish, who responds by back-flopping into the water, apparently indifferent to the destruction of the whole world. Oh, but before he does this, he lets everyone in the fishing village know Batman's secret identity.
Dressed like a bat. You're out of your mind, Bruce Wayne.
I mean, it's not like Bruce gives a shit anyway. Any attempt to move the story forward feels contrived. Batman has no idea what these aliens are, or even the threat level that is coming with them. Why is there no motivation for him to sort out the situation independently? Why does he go straight to recruiting the Justice League? Then there are just small indications of laziness. Bruce Wayne is acting like he has no idea who Aquaman is. He acts surprised when it's revealed to him, when it's been established that he's seen images of him in both Suicide Squad and Batman v Superman, and in this movie. Is he pretending not to know for some kind of unknown weird advantage? Batman has a shave in the jet and talks to Alfred about assembling the rest of his team. It's here that Alfred says this line.
One misses the days when one's biggest concerns were exploding wind-up penguins.
And this is the point in the film where you realise that Justice League has no idea what it wants to be. It's almost impossible to imagine this version of Batman fighting wind-up penguins. This is a Batman who's previously been seen branding criminals with a bat logo as a way of signalling them out in prison. Justice League doesn't seem to have any kind of reference point for its tone or genre, and as a result of this, it doesn't feel fully formed. Batman and Robin draws inspiration from the goofy, camp 60s Batman, and uses over-the-top designs and characters to make a tonally consistent, light-hearted action film for kids. Ant-Man at its core is a heist film, and interlaces that genre with comedy to produce a family-friendly movie with a sense of fun and exploration. The Dark Knight is a crime film inspired by Jeff Loeb's graphic novel, The Long Halloween. It is always trying to be a thriller, never panders to children, because that's not what the film wants to be. Whether you like them or not, they have a clear sense of their genre, tone, and audience. This allows them to develop characters, worlds, and make the most of their sequences. When you look at Justice League, there's nothing. It tries to be everything at the same time, and therefore becomes so diluted that it becomes nothing.
Step one, you feel the energy with glee. You say the world belongs to me. You are so strong you won't get cold. You use your powers of teleport. Nick Fury standing to my right, and lots of women putting up a fight. Between the lines of fear and blame, you begin to wonder why you came. Where did I go wrong? I lost a cue somewhere along in the bitterness, and I would have destroyed the earth that night had I known how to steal you.
In both the Avengers and Justice League, the villains want to steal a cube. I thought it would be fun to compare two cube stealing scenes, which are structured basically the same way, but couldn't be further apart when it comes to hitting the mark. Both scenes start with a dangerous, powerful alien cube becoming active after years of inactivity. In Avengers, we have alarms going off, people running frantically in panic, there's high tension and an atmosphere of stress, whereas in Justice League, the Amazonians calmly walk to the cube, where all the warriors have their bows aimed at it. The air has a staticness, there's zero communication that anyone is nervous about the cube. The only way you can even tell that anything is out of the norm is through dialogue, which is performed like casual small talk. When Nick Fury gets to the cube, everyone is in a deep urgency to try and figure out what's happening and how they can prevent a disaster. The Tesseract is framed as something very potent, and Fury has ordered the evacuation of the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. base, fearing that the Tesseract could cause a catastrophe. Whedon takes time building anticipation and tension for what threat will be coming. Also, Fury doesn't know much about the Tesseract and asks questions about it. These are questions that the audience have as well. In Justice League, as soon as they enter the room, before we can even begin to understand the significance of the cube, a strange PS2 character teleports in. He's declared a Steppenwolf, where this woman says this.
You will not like your welcome.
Then the villain of the film gives the best comeback that he could think of at that time.
Oh, I think I will.
Yeah, solid. He summons some bug creatures and they all fight. All the bug creatures look exactly the same, and the Amazonians all look like different variations of Wonder Woman. There's not any specific Amazonian that we connect with, and the action is so fast-paced that we never see any kind of impact. Back to Avengers, the cube begins to move, causing small earthquakes around the base. There's a burst of light and a strange man is suddenly in the space. He gives a perverted smile to himself. There's a sense that anything could happen, and as he slowly takes in his surroundings, it escalates to Loki brutally murdering tens of trained soldiers. It's made clear how much of an unstoppable force Loki is. It then becomes quiet again. as he uses his spear to manipulate the minds of soldiers and scientists in the base, showcasing his magical qualities. As he's doing this, Fury takes possession of the cube, giving the viewer the hope that he might be able to escape with it. They try and give the scene in Justice League the same sense of hope, as the leader of the Amazonians manages to take their cube and seal the cave with Steppenwolf inside it. However, in order to take the cube, it means the Amazonians have to hold back Steppenwolf in a way that makes him look like just a regular bloke. Also, as it's already been established that Steppenwolf can teleport, sealing the cave seems like a poorly thought out plan. Avengers stops the action to give us dialogue between Loki and Nick Fury. We understand his plan, how he sees humans, and why it's important that Fury stops him from taking the cube. Fury gets shot and Loki grabs the Tesseract, resulting in a high-octane car chase as the base gets detonated to try and stop Loki from escaping. We have a chase on horseback in Justice League, but they are lobbing the cube back and forth so much that you get the impression that it's weightless, devaluing its importance. Steppenwolf teleports away with the mother box, but we don't care, because we don't understand its significance and we don't understand the consequences. The impact of the Avengers is much more resonant, because it is practical with its approach to action. Loki's violent acts are real and palpable, because there was planning put into the shots and stunt work. Avengers has a dynamic sound design, giving Loki a real sense of power. When Loki effortlessly throws a guy against a wall, you can hear all the bones in his body break. The CG'd combat that takes place in Justice League shows Steppenwolf throwing Amazonians around like rubber rag dolls. There's no sense of impact to the viewer. The sound design in no way seems concerned about painting a picture as to what is happening to the Amazonians. Steppenwolf swings his giant axe, smashing the Amazonians, but the sound effect they chose to use is just a generic artificial metallic sound. It's ambiguous whether that's a murdering blow or if it's just a graze for them. Even the action sequences in a film like Elektra Assassin, whilst looking as awful as Justice League, at least approach showing conflict with a degree of creativity. The villains have interesting powers, and it tries to build tension that allows the viewer to be surprised. The stunts are enjoyable, and it feels more grounded in reality. The creative philosophy of Justice League seems to be trying to shove in as much exposition as possible in the shortest amount of time. There's never an attempt to surprise us with characters, nothing to be revealed about them, nothing for them to learn. Characters state exactly what they're thinking and feeling, and then the scene ends. It is always framed as just an overhauled exchange of information as the characters walk or stand. The establishing scene for Cyborg is a dull, lifeless one with him and his father. It's revealed that he was in an accident and his father merged him with the mother box as a way of saving his life. He stares into a microwave and asks his father basic, obvious questions.
Does anybody know I'm alive?
The accident was weeks, maybe months ago, yet he's asking his father questions as if this is the first time they're speaking since. There is no warmth between the two, which is what you'd expect to see with a loving father and son. Later on, his father gets kidnapped and Cyborg is desperate to rescue him, yet there is no effort to build any form of emotional connection in this scene. Diana visits Bruce Wayne and they act like old friends. Neither of them have any secrets or are putting on any kind of persona. Diana explains to Bruce why Steppenwolf wants the cube in a long Lord of the Rings-esque sequence. Which, if you think is good visual storytelling, I have news for you. You're a pleb. Because there is nothing stylistic about this scene. It is just assigned visuals to exactly what Wonder Woman is saying. It in no way asserts Steppenwolf as a threatening leader, since we literally see him run away from everyone like a big old pussy. It immediately cuts to the battle midway through. There's no build-up where we get a sense of Steppenwolf's vast army. We don't see any casualties, and the impression is that Steppenwolf was very easily defeated. His plan is to try and take over the world using 3 mother boxes to terraform Earth in order to destroy all life forms, which is pretty much the exact same plot of Man of Steel. Bruce Wayne reiterates what he reiterates in every scene he's been in up to this point, that he wants to build up a team to stop him. He doesn't attempt to locate the other 2 cubes or make any plan to destroy them. He just wants a special team because he's sure that will work. Steppenwolf has 1 cube, the other 2 are on Earth, in Atlantis, and Star Labs. We see Aquaman save a fisherman from a sinking ship. After dropping him off, he discovers green shit on his chest. This makes him immediately aware that the mother box Atlantis is protecting is under attack, and he runs to save it. We get a shorter, similar cube stealing scene to the one in Themyscira, except this time it's underwater and it looks more disgusting and artificial. Steppenwolf teleports, punches some soldiers, grabs the cube and teleports out. There's no effort to give us a sense of dread or make us feel like they have a chance of stopping the assault. This scene could have showcased the culture of Atlantis, the people and their abilities, but it's over almost before it starts. And what we do get is so drained of creativity that it may have completely fucked over any chance of the Aquaman film being enjoyable. Once Aquaman arrives, we have more exposition, where we're spoon-fed everything about Aquaman's relationship with Atlantis. It's so boring and irrelevant to the rest of the film that describing it might make you stop watching this video. The film is so bogged down in explaining everything that's happening to us that there is no breathing room to develop characters, status, or relationships. Everything is conveyed in the simplest format, through verbal exchanges. It is always conversational and lifeless. It feels devoid of artistry or drive. Cinema can easily explore multiple elements within one scene. So when Justice League only has scenes dedicated to establishing one element of information, it makes every interaction feel empty. But all these contrived scenes that don't work are all building towards getting the team together. We're not watching big-budget superhero team-up films to observe meticulously thought-through original stories which challenge our perception and change the way we think about life. We come for the spectacle, to experience escapism, and for the joy of seeing our favourite heroes come together. Our fantasies become realised when we observe childhood icons interacting with one another. The characters will bounce off each other, learning and changing through action sequences, heated arguments, or expressing vulnerabilities. This creates a fully nostalgic and cathartic experience. This is what Justice League really needed to nail. The core of the film is this team, but predictably, they fuck it up in the most unbelievable way. So, how does a writer or director go about defining and making a team dynamic work? Well, it all comes down to character objectives. Generally, an ensemble superhero film will begin by showing the characters, separating them from others and showcasing their individuality. These core differences are communicated with their objectives. These define what they're passionate about, their flaws and their strengths. This will lead up to a moment where the team refuse to collaborate due to these differences. Maybe they have an argument, maybe they'll lose a fight, maybe they'll do both, but it's in this moment that we see how each hero perceives the others. There's a misalignment of objectives, and the lack of unity leads to conflict. When the conflict's resolved, the team objectives align, meaning they can overcome whatever evil is threatening the world. Bada bing, bada boom, you got yourself a superhero team-up movie. Does this remind you of anything? That's right, Suicide Squad. Now, Suicide Squad is shit. There's no question about that. I'm not celebrating Suicide Squad. I can shit on that film for days. But when you look at how they handle the team dynamics, it's leaps and bounds better than anything Justice League offers. In Suicide Squad, each character has something different going for them. No two characters have the same skills or abilities, and at the start of the film, they all have separate objectives that define and separate them as characters. Harley Quinn wants to be with the Joker, Deadshot wants to see more of his daughter, Killer Croc wants a reduced sentence, Captain Boomerang wants to escape, Rick Flag wants to save his girlfriend, and Diablo wants to redeem himself. As the film progresses and the characters overcome various challenges, their objectives slowly change until we get to a point when they've gone from disliking each other to actually caring for each other in some way. This leads to them all sharing the same objective of wanting to save the world. This gives the film a sense of purpose, giving it a structure that we can emotionally connect with. With Justice League, the moment they're all in the same room, they're immediately sharing the same singular objective. They all merge into the same bland person, as there's never space to establish personal objectives for each character. At the start, Cyborg wants to rescue his father, but he does that straight away without any narrative obstacles, and then opts to stay with the team, where he just becomes a Swiss Army knife that can do anything the script decides he can do. The Flash wants to exonerate his father from a crime he didn't commit, but that never serves any narrative function and only exists to weakly convince us that he is in fact a character. But he's mostly just a lackey for the team, happy to follow orders. But sadly, those are sincerely the two strongest characters in Justice League. Aquaman is literally nothing. He doesn't want to help the Justice League, but when Atlantis gets their cube nicked, he does a complete 180. He doesn't have any character or depth. I don't know if he's a foreigner to Earth or if he's accustomed to the people. I don't know if he's intelligent or naive. I don't know if he wants to be a hero or if he's hiding from it. He also serves no narrative purpose and is just someone who fights. You could cut him completely out the film and nothing would change. With Wonder Woman, it seems that so much that was developed in her own movie was literally cast aside. Her standalone film showed her learning to appreciate the beauty of the human race, how they're worth protecting despite their flaws. The film literally ends with her giving a monologue conveying exactly that. But in this film, she seems to have reverted back to being secretive and hesitant about taking a leadership role. Throughout the film, she only ever serves to give exposition about Steppenwolf and argue with Batman. But if stating why I think Justice League is the worst superhero film ever made wasn't controversial enough for you, I'm now going to argue that this is the worst Batman ever put to film. Yes, worse than George Clooney. At the start of Batman and Robin, Batman doesn't trust Robin. He's overprotective and controlling, but by the end of the film, he's able to trust and respect Robin as equal. This is a character arc. Say what you like about the cheesy dialogue, rubber nipples, and back credit card, but this is fundamental to any good story. Change, compromise, realization, and motivation behind character conflict. The Batman in Justice League starts the film wanting to build up a team to stop an alien invasion, and does exactly that. There's a scene where Bruce Wayne recruits Barry Allen, and there's this exchange of dialogue.
What are your superpowers again?
I'm rich.
It seems like the writers and directors went into Justice League with the mindset that Batman's skills and abilities entirely come from his wealth. The Batman in Justice League is not the same character from Batman vs Superman. This is not a man that evokes fear in criminals or is capable of research or deduction. His martial arts skills are never useful to the plot of the film. He's always stuck tussling with one bug creature while the rest of the team are able to cut through them like butter. Batman is never coming up with intelligent ideas and seems to lack basic cognitive abilities. Visually, he's flabby, and Ben Affleck seems to be completely phoning this performance in. When compared to his performance in Daredevil, you can see a lot of small details and looks that communicate the emotions of Matt Murdock. He's not a bad actor, but he is in Justice League because he has nothing to work with. The first ever live action sequence with the Justice League is a complete mess. It all starts with Gordon relaying to the team that a group of civilians have been kidnapped by the bug creatures, including Cyborg's dad. Batman decides to bring a huge hulking bat tank with him, which I suppose is really important when it comes to rescuing hostages. He decides to use a bulbous, loud, mechanical vehicle when something subtle and sneaky would clearly be of a tactical advantage. These hostages are minutes away from execution, yet there's a decision to use a slow-moving vehicle. There's no sense of urgency from the team. They're acting like teenagers on a field trip. It's here that the Flash informs Batman that he doesn't know how to save people. Despite being seen saving people in 2 other movies, having a costume, and being well known enough to be on Batman's radar, this is apparently his first time saving a human being, and he needs to be walked through the process. The conflict starts, and any hope of having good choreography with the heroes working together is completely lost. It's all shots of the heroes fighting in separate corners of the room. In The Defenders, there's one scene where Iron Fist is being shot at, and he takes cover behind the bulletproof Luke Cage. This one movement cements them as a team. We know why they're more efficient as a team as opposed to just on their own. In the whole of the Justice League movie, this is the closest we get to anything like that.
Ride ain't over yet. My man.
Aquaman decides to show up and join the team at this point. He also somehow knows exactly where they are, so well done for that. Steppenwolf escapes, they save the hostages, and Cyborg safely has the mother box in his mitts. But why did Steppenwolf kidnap these people? And why is he choosing to attack Earth now? Well, okay. It's very simple. Basically, Steppenwolf and his cronies love fear. They're like attracted to fear, yeah? So that's why at the start of the film, Batman dangles the man off the rooftop to attract the bug guy. Well, Superman's death has made the planet really, really scared, which leaves it ripe for the taking. The bugs can also smell the energy that the mother box emits. All the kidnapped civilians had been around the mother box in some capacity. Steppenwolf wanted to ask them all where the cube was, which means they can't smell the cube, but they can smell the energy that the cube rubs on people. Despite Cyborg being half mother box or whatever the fuck he is, they don't seem to smell him coming. It's very obvious that they only kidnapped these people in order to write in an action scene. But if they were going to contrive a reason for a fight scene, they could have at least made it visually dynamic and not look like complete garbage. They take the mother box to the Batcave, where Bruce Wayne hypothesizes that the energy of the cube can be used to bring Superman back to life. He tells the team that they're not strong enough to defeat Steppenwolf, and without Superman, the world is going to be fucked.
We are not enough.
This leads to the only character interaction that holds any weight, as Batman thinks it's essential to bring Superman back to life despite the risks, but Wonder Woman takes on the stance that it's too dangerous. Ultimately, either of the characters could have taken these stances. These opinions could be switched around with the characters and it would make the same amount of sense. Neither character has been defined to be for or against resurrecting Superman. Bruce Wayne seems to hold no guilt for his death and was convinced the world would be better without Superman in the last film. Diana is the only character that knew about Steppenwolf before the events of the film and has heard first-hand accounts of Steppenwolf's strength. If anyone was going to have doubts about stopping his plan, you'd think it would be her. This is how you know the conflict doesn't come from the characters, but instead from plot necessity. Luckily for the team, it's confirmed for sure that the Mother Box does in fact have the energy required to resurrect Superman. It's confirmed by Cyborg, who runs the numbers?
We're integrating with the Mother Box. But I was running the numbers while you were being an asshole, and there is a high probability that we can bring him back.
Which, it just leaves so many questions. Like, what fucking numbers is he running? So now the objective for the League of Justice is to resurrect another member of the League. There's a truly perverse scene where Flash and Cyborg dig up Superman's grave in order to transport his corpse. There's a Frankenstein vibe, which I suppose you could argue is appropriate, given the chopped up, cobbled together tone of the rest of the movie. The team are able to successfully bring Superman back to life, but oh no, he is evil. Superman goes on to beat the ever-living shit out of everyone with complete ease. They are like bugs under a fucking boot. This completely invalidates any sense of a balanced team. Batman brings in Lois Lane, hoping she'll bring Superman back to sanity, which thankfully works. Superman was fully ready to burn Batman's face off. There was no way of knowing how far gone Superman was. Lois Lane's life could have genuinely been in danger with this move. However, it's all fine because the script says it is. If you didn't already believe that this was the shittest superhero team ever put to film, in the panic of the situation, none of them considered bringing the cube with them or securing it. The Mother Box is open to the taking, and Steppenwolf takes full advantage of it and teleports away with the Mother Box. The team react to losing a cube that has the capacity to destroy the whole world in the same way that customers react to finding out their favorite coffee shop ran out of cake. They go back to the Batcave to moan about how shit they all are, where Cyborg easily locates the cube and they're off to Russia to fight Steppenwolf. Superman's out of the picture and there's no chance of him being in the rest of the film. Anything can happen. Right, guys? It's now time for the final act of Justice League, and honestly, it looks so bad at this point. The colours are obnoxious, everything is artificial. Just by looking at the original trailers, you can see how much was manipulated and changed in post-production. The action sequences that were shot were not intended to look this way, and as a result, the computer-generated backgrounds look like a garish trash heap. The team's big hero moment is cheapened. Batman wants to sacrifice himself to create a distraction, so the rest of the team can get to Steppenwolf. The poor bloke just wants death, but Wonder Woman decides they should probably save him. They're able to get to Steppenwolf and the cubes pretty easily anyway. When the battle with Steppenwolf starts, they run into the exact same problems as last time. It's only been a night since the characters last took him on, and no one's evolved or grown in terms of skills, so it's a mostly identical sequence, except this time there's even more distance between the characters. Steppenwolf has the same amount of charisma and character as Aquaman. There just isn't a character. He sprouts evil, generic lines about world domination and fear. He fights Wonder Woman and Aquaman while Batman stays up on a ledge shooting bug people occasionally, as if that would make a fucking difference. Because of the computer-generated nature of the set and the uninspired camera work, it's really hard to get an actual layout of the space our heroes are fighting in. Batman could be a few feet or miles away from Steppenwolf, there's just no way of knowing. Then, as everyone expected, Superman swoops in and disregards everything the team has been doing up to this point. Superman can do everything the other characters can do, but better. So all you're thinking is, why does anyone else need to be there? He saves more people than the Flash, he beats the shit out of Steppenwolf more than both Aquaman and Wonder Woman combined, and he separates the cubes quicker and more efficiently than Cyborg. He doesn't do anything better than Batman, because Batman doesn't do anything. Steppenwolf is ravaged by his own minions and he retreats from Earth, but we feel absolutely nothing. It's Superman who saves the world. The Justice League are only in this film to bring Superman back to life. These characters are the headliners for DC Comics, a company that crafts stories weekly with millions of fans. These characters are loved. They've been adapted and changed and given depth and backstories. There are hundreds of ways this film could have been rewritten and changed and shifted to make us care about these people and their fight. But the failure of the film is down to key players in the production willfully aiding a self-destructive studio. A studio so desperate to make a crowd pleaser that they ignore every rule in filmmaking. There's a shot of the team standing side by side on a rooftop. This is the first time we've seen the full Justice League together in live action. But Ben Affleck is staring off into the distance like he's having a stroke. A director who cared would have gone for another take. An editor invested in the film might have tried something else. And had Warner Brothers not decided to cut out an hour of the original script, we might have had a cohesive film. If you've made it this far into the video, I can only assume that you're like me and you love cinema. Either that or you're just a weird masochist. Superhero films are so successful and well loved that we've got to a point where the only way to make a successful blockbuster has to be under the guise of the superhero genre. Big budget productions that are solely original are rare and sometimes do well, but they can nowhere near match the popularity of a Marvel film. But this isn't necessarily a bad thing. We're lucky enough to have directors and writers who are learning to work within these spaces and still develop what a blockbuster can be. Taika Waititi transformed the nature of Thor. The Russo brothers took the espionage genre and ran with it. Not only this, but the comic book universe is so vast, epic and surreal that the potential cinematic outcomes are unlimited. Seeing these stories be adapted into something larger than the niche nerdy comics we enjoy in privacy is a good thing. These films are something that deeply breeds community and opens up avenues for friendships and discussions. Even if you hate the latest Marvel film and think they're overrated and oversaturated, they're identifiable on a mass global scale, and they have allowed a space in which we can all have opinions on them. We are all brought closer together by these films. But Justice League cuts through that harmony. The whole film is a dark ploy to take advantage of a culture that unites us. The film is so contorted and poorly calculated that the ugliness is on the surface. The constant reshoots and the changes made in post-production to manipulate an already broken film has produced something that feels entirely predatory. The intention is clear, and that's to make money. Every aspect of this film is a desperate attempt to get you to give them your money. There's no consideration for achieving anything artistic, and it disregards the nature of what makes cinema fun, so much so that it insults us directly. As I laid out in the beginning of this video, these films are our Greek myths. Our culture is going to be analysed through these films in the future. And I like to think on a whole it paints quite a nice image, one of hope, playfulness and empathy. But Justice League has managed to frame itself as the antithesis of that. When you look at who we are and what we stand for through the lens of Justice League, that's when you see our ugliness. You see the fickleness, the greed, and you see the manipulation. It offers nothing new, nothing constructive, and nothing positive. And that is why Justice League is the worst superhero film of all time, and that is why it matters. But does it matter to you? Let me know down below. Let me know what you thought of Justice League, what you think of superhero films in general, and just general thoughts in the video. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and yeah, I'm trying out these new longer videos. Let me know if you think it was too long. You know, I can take criticism, so don't feel like you have to hide from me and like lie to me and say, great video, NitPix, that was a really good video, I really enjoyed it, when actually you didn't enjoy it, when actually you were thinking in the back of your head, oh, this is too long, it's not like the other ones where he's not talking about a TV show. I thought you would talk about TV. Like, if you think that, just tell me, because it will just help me out a bit more. Even if you never comment on anything, like you're just like a silent lurker, like make a YouTube account just to comment on this video to give me shit. Like, I would appreciate that. All right. Also follow me on Twitter. That's probably it. Oh, I have a Patreon as well. That's probably it after that. Yeah, Patreon, Twitter, follow me. You can abuse me on both of those platforms too as well. Love you. Bye.